We're Foodscaping Utah, and in this video we're going to talk about planting for a fall harvest. So today is July 31st. It's a rare cloudy day, so we thought it would be a great day to do a little fall season planting. So today we're going to plant beets, kohlrabi, and carrots, and then something like lettuce and spinach will wait a little bit longer. So in the rest of this video, we're going to talk about how to plan your fall harvest, how to calculate how many days to harvest and when to sow what. We'll talk about what sort of crops work well for a fall harvest, and we'll talk about some advantages and one challenge of growing for a fall harvest. So starting with the advantages, cool season crops, which can be a number of things, really grow well when they're planted mid to late summer to be harvested as the weather cools. When they're mature, then the weather's cool enough that things like spinach and lettuce stay crisper and have a better flavor. Anybody who's grown lettuce in hot weather knows that sometimes it gets bitter, especially it tries to go to seed if you try to grow it in the summer. So we really love lettuce when we're picking it in September and October. You really get the best flavor. Something like root vegetables are awesome for fall. So today we're going to plant some carrots and some beets and some kohlrabi because as the weather cools and they mature, if they experience a little bit of frost, one thing that they do is store energy in their roots. So something like a carrot gets sweeter because it puts a lot of energy in its roots. So our favorite part of growing fall crops is getting the flavor. So that's one big advantage there. So another big advantage of planting for a fall harvest is there's less pest pressure later in the year. So something like a brassica, that would be your cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, especially something like Brussels sprouts. When you grow them in the spring and into the summer, there's usually a lot of aphids because the aphids build up quickly in the spring, and growing them later in the year gives the predators a chance to catch up. So things like ladybugs, lacewings, predatory wasps can control your aphids for you, and we don't see near as much damage due to aphids on our cool weather crops. So how do you decide what to plant and when to plant it? So we usually limit our list to cool season crops, and the way to do it is to look at when your particular average first frost is. Here we're in a more protected area of Utah, and it's zone 6 or 7, and our average first frost is mid to late October. So what we do is look at crops that are cool season and then look for the days to maturity or the days to harvest. For an example, these beets, we can read right on the seed packet, it says days to harvest, 60 days. And if our average first frost is mid-October, and we count back 60 days, you'd be looking at 30 days would be September, August, so we're talking mid-August. So we want to get these in either now into July or the first half of August to make sure there's plenty of time. But also remember that these crops can tolerate some light frost, and in a typical fall you may have one frost early and then a little bit of warm period, and they should be able to tolerate that fine. And then another thing, like if you're thinking about lettuce and spinach, you can also harvest those, especially something like spinach. We could plant that all the way through August here because you can harvest them as baby spinach too. So it kind of depends on what you're growing, but the main thing to focus on is when is your average first frost. Okay, so one of the main challenges of sowing in July or August is getting your seed to germinate. So especially in a climate like ours here in Utah where it's hot and dry and sunny, the soil can really dry out quickly. So some tips for keeping the soil moist, when you do sow, say you're going to put in some beets, you want to see where your irrigation area is. And one thing that I like to do is to make sure there's some moisture in there. This is pretty good, but you can add a little moisture into your furrow. Let that soak in before you put your seed in. But the big challenge is going to be keeping that moisture in there. So one thing that we like to do after we put our seed in and we cover it up, we can cover that with a little bit of organic matter. You want to wet it down, of course. You could use something that you've recently harvested, or you could use something like leaves or grass clippings if you have access to that, or even newspaper, something to cover the soil so it doesn't get baked by the sun. For a quick example of that, in this area, in this bed, we already grew one crop of carrots early in the season, and we pulled those out, and they've gone all brown now. But as soon as we pulled those carrots out, this was mid-July, we sowed seed for Brussels sprouts. So here you see a Brussels sprout coming out that's going to be one of our crops for our fall harvest. So that went in July 15th in this area where we had carrots, right? And then another example of things that we can do for a fall crop. Here we've got beans, which actually went in after broccoli and cabbage. These are a bush bean, and we're going to sow, not yet, we're going to let these mature a little bit, but we're going to sow mid-August or so some lettuce and spinach in this area, and then we can use the bean plant to kind of shade the soil for germination. And then as soon as those pop up, they'll need sunlight. So we'll either need to move the beans in or start pulling the plants, because they'll be mature by then and already producing lots of beans. In this area, we already had a harvest of mustard greens. So we pulled that out almost a month ago now, and we'll put a row of carrots in, and they'll grow happily there while this peanut crop grows. And then on this side, we had dill in this area during the spring, and we just pulled it all out. It already went to seed. And like I mentioned earlier, here we'll do kohlrabi and beets. In the backyard, to have one more example, we followed peas. Our spring peas, we pulled those out and put in sunflowers and some cowpeas. So really you can get creative and do all kinds of cool weather crops for the fall. So those are some examples of our favorite things to grow in the fall and our plan for this year. But please let us know in the comments what your favorite crops are to grow for a fall harvest. So hope you enjoyed the video and learned a little bit about how to do it. Thanks for watching Foodscaping Utah, and grow your own.